Hey, welcome. Now, afternoon energy dips. Do you find yourself that you get to a certain point in the afternoon and you have to just grab the caffeine? Not necessarily by order of the Peaky Blinders, but do you have to go and just grab for the caffeine because your energy just dips and you need a pick me up? Maybe it's not caffeine that you go for, maybe it's sugar. Maybe it's something else. Maybe you have to have a smoke in the afternoon and get the nicotine fix, or you have to have some nootropics or these sorts of things. Why do we get those? I get asked all the time, Ollie, how do I stop getting afternoon energy dips? And as I've said here, I've been asked this 3 times this week. I had 2 new clients start in the last couple of weeks. And the first thing that we spoke about was afternoon energy dips and making sure that we're able to get through this period to not need to have a pick me up, not need to have a nap, not need to have sugar, not need to have extra caffeine, because it is truly possible. And this is where we have to understand that just because something is common, just because something is common does not make it normal. And that is exactly what happens with afternoon energy dips. Now, the first place we would look is sleep. If you have an afternoon energy dips, are you also waking up during the night? Is it that your head hits the pillow and suddenly you get all these thoughts that go around your head that you actually can't get to sleep? That's the first place to look. Is it that you go to sleep for a couple of hours and then you wake up needing the toilet? Then we can look there as well. Is it that 4 a.m. comes and you're just wide awake, wired, and you just have to get out of bed because you can't get back to sleep? We look there. Or is it that when you wake up at 6 a.m., whenever it is, you just feel like you need another 3 hours sleep? So what happens? Well, we then go and grab the caffeine, whether it's tea, whether it's coffee, whatever it is, whatever your drink of choice, to wake ourselves up. That's one of the problems straight away. Because if we're not getting good restorative levels of sleep, our body is not able to recharge those batteries. It's not able to fully fuel and energize, or fully energize and recharge, to make sure we're ready to take on the next day. Now, the next issue there, as we've mentioned, is caffeine first thing. Now, when we have caffeine first thing, now I do like caffeine. As I say, I do like caffeine. I do like coffee, and I have caffeine. But having caffeine first thing, if you have problems with sleep, is probably one of the reasons that you have problems with sleep. Because when we have this caffeine, we're not waking ourselves up naturally. Caffeine then goes and latches on to these things called adenosine receptors. Now, these adenosine receptors, this adenosine has to latch onto them to wake ourselves up naturally. But caffeine has gone and latched itself onto these receptors. So this adenosine can't do its job. So that is still running around the system. And when the caffeine wears off a few hours later, that adenosine then goes to latch on, and then we get these slumps. And if you actually have caffeine and you do high intensity working out in the morning, that can then lead to a bigger afternoon energy dip potentially, if we're not fueling or dealing with stress elsewhere. So those are the first places I look with sleep and coffee usage. Then we look at other stimulants. Is someone smoking a lot? Is there a lot of nicotine in there, vaping going on, and other chemical exposure? Is there a lot of nootropics? Again, stimulant use. Then we can look into nutrition. And one of the most underlooked places of nutrition is not getting enough protein in throughout the day. So many people look at protein just as this nutrient that builds muscle. Yes, it does build new tissue, builds the building blocks. It puts in the building blocks into our system to actually lay down new strands of amino acids of proteins to regenerate our cells, to regenerate tissue. And we need that throughout the day. And also, what it does is help balance our blood sugar levels. So many people start the day off with caffeine, then they go and have cereal or maybe a bagel or a smoothie, these high sugary actual foods, which one of the biggest cons of the 20th century was having cereal as breakfast. Absolutely was one of the worst things for people's health. Having some protein, having some eggs, having some bacon, having some sausages, these sorts of things, some protein based breakfast with some veggies is going to be much better. Like it or not, it is absolutely going to be better for you and fill you up for longer. But regardless of that, having some protein in your breakfast is going to help you stabilize what we call our blood sugar levels. Now, if you stabilize your blood sugar levels throughout the day, we get much more consistent energy. What usually happens in the afternoon when we have this crash is we'll have the poor composition of food for breakfast. Then we'll have a poor composition, very carb heavy lunch, very low in protein. And it's not to say carbs are bad, it's to say have the right composition for your meals. Then what happens is we have this dip in glucose. We have this spike, then it comes down because we're releasing this insulin. We want to get that glucose levels down. And it overcompensates, our body overcompensates. As a result, we have a low in the afternoon, and we have to have a pick me up of sugar or something that gives us energy in order to pick us up. Now, how do we stop that? As I've said, have the right composition of meals throughout. If you are struggling with this, don't go and do intermittent fasting or anything like that. Have a good protein-based breakfast. You may want to have a snack mid-morning, which has some protein in it. Then have protein-based lunch with some fats and some carbohydrates in. Then, if you need a snack in the afternoon, pretty certain that you wouldn't, because if you have 3 solid meals, which are the right composition, eventually you won't need to have those snacks. Then, from there, make sure your evening meal is good. If you have your evening meal 2-3 hours before bed, maybe 4, you should be able to digest that in a good amount or at a good rate for a good amount before you then get to bed and then be able to sleep much deeper. Now, overall calories. Too much is going to be a case where we're putting too much stress on our actual gut. So we're overly stressing that to not be able to sleep and regenerate our cells. So it's working on digestion. Eating too late, close to bed. Again, working on digestion rather than sleep. Having things like alcohol in the evening is going to impact the quality of our sleep, which again is going to then make a difference to the energy we have the next day. And alcohol is one of these things where it knocks us out. It does not allow us to get good quality sleep. Absolutely does not. So try not to kid yourself into thinking that just because you have an alcohol to switch off, to de-stress, you're causing more stress on your body. So just be very aware of when you have that. And the same with caffeine. If you have caffeine to pick you up in the afternoon, caffeine has a half-life between 5 and 12 hours, depending on the person, depending on how long it takes for you to metabolize this caffeine. So you want to make sure that you're not having caffeine. If you're trying to get to sleep at 10 p.m., don't have caffeine in the afternoon. Switch to decaf, which still has some caffeine in, or fruit teas, herbal teas, these sorts of things. I always have Red Bush tea or Rooibos, whatever you want to call it. And I love that stuff. Chuck a little bit of sweetener in. Love it. Absolutely love it. So that is going to help you with those afternoon energy dips. But as always, do it slowly. Do it one step at a time. And look at your overall food levels as well. Because one of my clients was, if you're having a lot of stimulants, you don't always recognize your hunger. So you have the stimulant, which stops you eating, which then means you're in a big calorie deficit, which people think, whoa, great for fat loss and things like that, weight loss. But actually, we're just then causing more stress on the body in an already stressful world and stressful environment that we're exposed to. So we have to be very kind of aware of the deficit we put our body into when it comes to any fat loss or any goals like that. Try not to rush these things, but definitely make sure you are eating enough. We have to fuel cellular regeneration. We have to fuel our resilience to stress, our immune system, and we have to be able to fuel sleep. And if we don't, you're going to be suffering from afternoon energy dips for a long, long while. If you want more information on this, go to revitalizationblueprint.com, revitalization with a Z. Go to revitalizationblueprint.com. I have a group program, which is absolutely awesome. It's got trainings every 2 weeks where we go through a different topic every 2 weeks. Then we go through a live question and answer where you can talk about what things have been coming up over the last 2 weeks and push yourself forward to be accountable. Then it's also got 2 years worth of a library of, or 2 years library worth of videos that are all separated into different content. So it sounds like a lot, but it's not overwhelming. You can easily pick out what you want, get support, ask questions, and move forward with your health. So that is revitalizationblueprint.com, revitalization with a Z. And it's currently $147 a month. But if you use the code FOUNDER, you get $50 a month off. So go and check that out. Any questions on that? Or if you don't want to go into a group program, you want to go straight into one-to-one, drop me a message. We'll get on a call and let's just see. afternoon energy dips. How do we make these a thing of the past? Because if you do the work, if you do the things that I say, you will make them a thing of the past.